Hi, Lucy, Ashish, and Huda. Welcome. I would like to also welcome our audience listening in. If you're here, it means you're part of the momentum, empowering yourself as well as other female leaders in business and in life. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and being a part of the change you want to see. Change happens when you listen, when you learn, and when you take action. Taking action could simply mean challenging gender-biased conversations and norms within your family or friend circles, to actively investing in those startups that are creating the world you want to see. So what are we going to do today is I'm going to introduce the topic. We'll be speaking about inspiring women and investors' perspective. And this topic is particularly of interest to me. And I'm so looking forward to hearing from the heartfelt and authentic panel we have on board. Just to introduce the format, the panel will be simple. We'll spend some time getting to know each other. We will go into discussing some key questions, which I've been sent through from female leaders in government, the private sector, female entrepreneurs. They really wanted to hear from all of you, and women who just want to simply learn more about the ecosystem. So we'll shape the discussion. We'll take it from your personal perspectives to global, to regional, and then maybe a few questions from the startups that I was given. But before we jump in, maybe a little bit about me as the host of the panel, and simply my why and what I do. I'm the Director of Investor Relations at Vitality. I represent female-led startups in the region. I'm partnered to Untitled Capital, a South African fund acting as the bridge between early stage and later stage investment rounds. For women in tech, I focus on helping scale the business operations to the chapters, the incredible chapters we have on the ground. And I'm a mom of two. I live in Dubai, and I'm an angel investor who focuses in female-led business and what is termed the phrase BIPOC companies now. So my why is very simple. I have a boy and a girl, and both will live in the confines of a box that the world created for them, unless me, through our actions, teach them otherwise. So a wise woman once told me, for a coin to have any value, both sides need to be equal. And on that note, I would love to hand over to the panel. I'm going to just go from window to window as I see you. So Lucy, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then we'll move on to Ashish, and we have Huda on the call as well. Please go ahead, and it's so good to have you on the call.
I want to talk about my work with the World Business Angels Forum, and that's where the hat I'm wearing today. So I sit on the investment committee, but first of all, the WBAF itself is an affiliated partner of the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. Its members are heads of states, investors, academics, economic development zones, and so forth. So we're committed to collaborating globally to empower the economic development of the world by fostering innovative financial instruments for startups, scale-ups, entrepreneurs, SMEs, and very importantly, promoting gender equality and women's participation in all sectors of the world economy. So that's my hat that I'm wearing today. I am also very focus on the future of work and education. I have the honor of being on the board of trustees with the American School of Dubai. And I am a mother to a boy, Max.
And Lucy, your why, how did you get involved? Just simply for the audience, your why of, just to give some indication on that as well.
Yeah, Nadia, as a fellow angel, you understand that there's nothing more fulfilling than listening to entrepreneurs share out their dreams, and then to see the type of impact that they can make on the world, and then somehow helping them with startup capital. So I always think it's amazing to be able to help in a very small monetary way, but perhaps more importantly, if I'm able to help mentor or open doors, I guess that's my why, because entrepreneurs are the bedrock of every economy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ashish, I'd love to hear just a small introduction from you. I know we chatted last night, but yeah, I think it would be good for the audience to hear from you.
Hi, Lucy, and hi, Huda. So I'm very thankful to you first to invite me to this event. I think I have done something nice to be here. And we are a family of diamonds and jeweler from last 70 years from my grandfather. So it's traditional business. But at the same time, we have investment companies in Dubai and other parts of the world where we are investing. And I live in Dubai. I have two daughters and one son. And of course, we have women empowerment at my home. Everybody is strong and working, right from my mother to, I think, my daughter will also. Everybody in the family, my sister. And all the major decision makings are in our family, and business and organizations are done by women. So I definitely believe that women empowerment is very important and it's inevitable. So I think in the coming time, nobody can stop it, because now they have started exploring, the potential that they have. They always had potential, but now they're coming out and like in the field and challenging and bringing great ideas. And the numbers are saying themselves. So this is a nice platform for me, and I would like to see what people can do and invest as an angel investor. And we have investment companies which will be allocating funds, especially for women in tech and to this part of the whole business. And we'll be keeping it aside just for investments.
Fantastic. And on that topic about female and investment, we joked last night that you in the jewelry business, I mean, who drives the sales for your businesses? It's the women. So
the beginning of the human age, every Adam wanted to please Eve, so they always brought gifts and jewelry, and our business is only depending on women. Actually, if you see, if there were no women, no ladies, there wouldn't have been jewelry business. And then it goes from generation to generation. Mother gives to the daughter, daughter gives to the, like, as a family tradition. So now it's a time where we can give back what we can give back to this part of the society. It's like what I can give back to my mother, what I can do for her. Like, it's the same women community, what we can do for them.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Ashish. Huda, you there? We'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your why. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. So just a brief introduction. Huda Lawati. I'm from Oman. I'm from this region. I'm a private equity professional. I'm a partner at Gateway Partners. I'm very, and I've done, investments for corporate and private equity environments for the last 18 years. I'm very sort of passionate about this subject. I'm on the board of Young Arab Leaders, where we try to support entrepreneurs, especially women. I personally try to do as much as possible through mentorship. And, as Lucy said, it's, there's so many things you can do. There's not just money. That because of our different career paths, we have things that we can bring to the table. And it's amazing to see, something that is so intuitive to you is a learning for somebody else, and vice versa. And if it makes them move a few steps further in their lives, it's, it's so rewarding. I think, the challenge we've had as women globally and in all sectors, obviously tech being one of them, is that we've had a lag, we've been held back. And so that when we're coming into the arena, we're minority. A lot of decision making is not by women, and that all that has repercussions. I mean, behavioral scientists will tell you a lot of it is not even intentional, right? People have unconscious bias, and people naturally select people who are more like them. And so, you have to make a special effort to overcome that and bring balance into the equation. And then, of course, within the region, I find, and people might not like this, but I find girls from the GCC work so much harder, with so much more passion, and they have something to prove. And since my high school days in Oman, I've always observed it, and I think it's amazing. And I think that we need more of it.
I couldn't agree with you more, Huda. I previously worked for 10 years in B2B SaaS, and predominantly in Africa and then Middle East. And coming to the Middle East, I was absolutely blown away by the female talent, and still am today. These girls have gone on from where they were to companies like LinkedIn, Facebook, Salesforce, and these are homegrown women from the region. So I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. And I hope we just have a good chat, good conversation. And I'll jump right in. We're going to start more from a personal perspective, and then go into a global discussion, and then bring it back to regional. And there are a few questions from startups that I was asked to pose to the panel. So just from a personal perspective, Lucy, maybe I could ask you, and if anybody else, please feel free to just have an open forum conversation. But there's a large amount of angel investment networks globally. Which ones do you belong to internationally, regionally, and what is your investing philosophy? What are your key drivers for making those decisions?
Yes, there are a lot of wonderful networks around the world. So I have investments in funds that do not have a gender lens focus, but I do also invest in a few specifically with a gender lens focus. And they are specifically Women's Angel Investor Network, Mindshift Capital, Next Wave Venture, the latter based out of the US. I already talked a lot about the World Business Angels Forum Angel Investment Fund, and that fund does not have a gender lens. However, I guess I want to bring up that even if a fund doesn't have a gender lens, there's still things that you can do to move the dial. So for instance, we decided for the fundraising stage that we wanted to have at least 50% of the startups pitching have founder teams that had at least one female founder. And so that happened. The pitching happened last week. There were thousands of applications. We narrowed this down to 60 to pitch. And on the actual pitching day, 59 pitched, and 23 had at least one female founder. So that's a good win, because you need to have platforms, right? You got to give platforms for female startups too. Then we also decided that we want to ensure that at least 50% of the startups, the 50% of the startups that we eventually fund will be ones that have at least one female founder. So I'm pleased to say that after the pitching, 4 out of the 8 shortlisted startups going into the due diligence stage have female founders. So, so this is an example of a fund that doesn't have any lens, but then if as a woman, if you sit on the IC and if you have, male champions, then we can all work to move the dial for female startups.
Agreed. Ashish, when you are, same question really, from an investment perspective, do you belong to any angel networks, and as a, locally or regionally?
So Dubai has great opportunities all over the world for investing, because being a very good hub where we can connect to all the people in the world. We are connected to a lot of organizations and who are coming to us for angel investments, seed investments. So we are doing equity derivatives and other financial instruments we are using through banks and other things. But angel investing we are doing directly and through banks also, and seed funding also we are doing. And we focus on mainly the ideas. We first, because in seed investment we see the ideas. What is the potential of the idea and how far this idea can go? And as I was telling Lucy, that we like to fund projects which can bring a big change in the society, a big comfort level to the society, so that once it gives a comfort to the society, it can grow tremendously. So such kind of ideas which can change people's life, make people's life easier, are the ones. And this segment of women entrepreneurship is something still, a lot of people are not haven't seen. And I think there's a great opportunity in seeing into this sector, and there's a lot of talent which is there. So investment in this will be amazing, because to go get those ideas which generally when we are investing with like with no gender parity and everything, then there's a lot of competition. But I think here there might not be so much competition. So it's a very good thing to start and promote those ideas and find them and support them, add value not just as a money, but the whole team, be a part of the team and work together and add value to it, you know. So it's a very interesting thing. And I also believe in social responsibility. So to give back to the society, and if some idea can do something and at the same time give back to the society, and it is very good. So while doing seed funding and all, then I'm seeing these kind of basic things, not just numbers on the table, because numbers might not be convincing at that period of time. But the personal mechanics with the founder, the personal relation, or the energy that they do it, the perspective that they have, I think those are great things. And how much they want to develop, the ethics that they follow of the business, you know. So those are a few basic things which I think I would be looking for when I'll be seeing those ideas. We have invested a lot in India, seed investments in but of course we haven't done it in the way like as women focused. But this is going to be first time women focused, which I'm looking forward to.
Great, thank you. Huda, I wanted to ask you as well, it's more of a reflective question, and maybe let's pose it from a private equity standpoint. 2020 was pivotal in many ways. How has the situation impacted the way you invest, or your investment thesis at the end of the day, or how the landscape operates? Any key input on that side?
Yeah, look, I think so. Just to give a little bit of background, Gateway is an emerging markets private equity fund, and we invest in sort of established companies backing great promoters. We're focused on consumption themes, which means that food, water, shelter, data, that sort of thing, which in emerging markets is just set for growth because of the young growing population. To some extent, the pandemic validated our thesis. We saw a very resilient portfolio. These businesses, some of them had dips, but overall were resilient. We are averse to high levels of debt because we're investing in growth, and that paid off as well. But on the other hand, it sort of heightened our focus on a few things. As a firm, we have a few SDG goals that we focus on at the firm level, and then again, a few others at the portfolio level. At the firm is gender equality. We're probably very unique as a private equity firm in that we have 40% women across the board. Now we're a small company, but that's still pretty good. In US, it's some and at the investment level, at senior levels, is something like 9%. So, I think that focus on such goals is also paid off, but the pandemic has made us focus on that more. It's made us focus on digitization more, on decarbonization more. And that's how we would be tweaking and altering our investment thesis going forward. We know investors ask more and more about our focus on everything from climate to gender, and I think that's a good thing. I think the more investors do that, the more it's going to happen, because the way the world works, it's there has to be pain associated with not living up to certain targets. I think if people just put it as a nice to do or nice to have, it's not going to happen. But investors are more focused on it. We're more focused on it, which makes our prospective portfolio companies more focused on it. And I think that's not limited to us. I see this as a wave, a global wave, and I think that it's going to affect everyone's investment approach.
Fantastic, thank you. And that actually you've led into my follow-on question, which is more of a forward-leading question. In terms of 2021 and what are the investor networks focusing on? And how are you driving these initiatives? That was my follow-on question, which you answered in the first one. But is Lucy or Ashish, are there any other, or even Huda, if you have any more input? But the next question was just to ask, what are the trends and the focus areas for 2021? And how are your networks driving these initiatives?
So I think, impact, So I think impact investments are very good for 2021, because this pandemic has showed us that, life is more important and things connected to life are very important. And so is getting us back to our roots. So Elon Musk, when he started, he was focusing on carbon emission. So he came with the idea that I want to finish the petrol thing and get carbon emission impact on the environment. So something like this will, like for health industry, for retail industries, for focusing on technical industry, which is connecting people. And those things, I think 2021 would be very good, like healthcare industry, which is remote healthcare industries. That is a very coming up things. And in next 15-20 years, and carbon emission, like environment friendly things would be very good. Substantial business environment would be very good. So where the business can be self-sustained, like an ecosystem where things can work on their own. So things that can connect all these things, I think that should be the focus of 2021.
Nadia, if I could answer that question using a story, as female angels pick up in recent years, we have seen an increasing overall interest in impact investing and gender lens investing. But I think it's important to emphasize that firms that make an impact can also make a profit, and the two are not mutually exclusive. And I always love to tell the story about a fintech that received funding from an angel group I was part of, and Expo 2020 Live. So Expo 20 Live was giving out innovation grants. So they provided Now Money, which is the fintech I'm talking about, $100,000 US, right, in innovation grants. So I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel with the decision maker for Expo 2020. And he shared that when he heard the startup pitch, he heard 69% of adults in MENA remain unbanked, and that's as high as 80% in the UAE, and we, Now Money, will give them access. I heard the UAE remittance market is over 30 billion annually, the third largest in the world, and if we only target to acquire 1 or 2% of that, it would equal X in revenue. Same pitch, right? He heard financial inclusion. I heard viable business model with huge upside. So I'm really hoping that entrepreneurs that are listening will realize you can be true to yourself. You don't need to change your business model depending on who you talk to. your investor will pull out what they need to pull out, right, to decide whether they want to invest or not. So I think impact came up a lot. But again, I always say impact does not mean that you're a charity, right? We all are in it to make money. And then very quickly, in terms of upcoming sectors, gaming and esports, because it's on the national agenda of our government and other governments of the UAE. I also feel it's very much tied into the future of work.
Agreed. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks, Ashish and Huda. In your experience as an investor, and Huda, you did actually you had a perfect answer that answered so many of my questions in one. But the ratio, you said 40% of your office is female at the firm you work for. But if I could ask Lucy or Ashish as well, and Huda, please jump in if you have any other mechanisms, because it's also about the portfolios that you invest in and the ratio on that side as well. But the ratio of men to women at the table and making the decisions at the end of the day, because I think that's when things change. And when you have more women making money and more women at the table, it's just an inclusive environment. So if you look at around you and your business networks and your angel networks and your investors and the portfolio, what would you say the ratio is at the moment? And has it improved? I mean, I hope it has improved, but what are the real stats when you just look around you?
Yeah, I mean, so essentially, because obviously the funds that I'm part of that have a gender, we're all women. The majority are women, because these some of these angel networks were created with the sole purpose of allowing and giving women investors the opportunity to invest and to learn. So, for instance, Next Wave Capital. The Next Wave Impact in the US, then their 99 investors are all women, and they have a model learning by doing, so that we can actually participate, for instance, in due diligence if we want to do that. So I think that's very important. And I would say that, with the exception of those very consciously designed vehicles, the majority of investors are still male.
So I feel, first of all, women are everywhere. So in the first place or the second place or in every decision there is, or any growing company, I think women plays the most important role. So they might not be in the front place, but they're somewhere. So I think this kind of event or this kind of platform can make them come forward and put their ideas individually and take the credit on by themselves, rather than, I think a lot of times women do a lot, sometimes more than the founders and more than the chairman of the company, but the credit goes to somebody else. And this platform will allow them to share the risk also. So I think this is one of the major, this will work very well because it'll give them a platform to work.
Nadia, are you also asking about how we can get more women
yeah,
to become?
That was the next, how do we, that's actually a great follow-on question. It's how do we drive initiatives and get more women at the table? I mean, I know on a small scale, just talking, because angel investing or investing you don't need to be an ultra high net worth individual to do so. You can just go ahead and I often get asked, how do you know what to invest in? Well, invest in as a consumer, invest as a woman, invest as a mother, whatever you're comfortable with. And the check size you're comfortable with it can be anything from $1,000 to some startups is a lot, or not a lot, but they have special purpose vehicles set up for $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. Just start somewhere, But what other initiatives, maybe on a corporate level or on an angel investor level or a company level, can be done to drive more women at the table or female investors?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel a few things. I totally agree with you. First of all, we as women, you're not always asked to be an angel because, again, many of the networks are started by men, and naturally they would go and reach out to their own network, which is predominantly other men. So I always say if we can enlist male champions, what's going on right now is that we've all heard the statistics. If you have a diverse team of founders, they outperform a team of all male founders. It's a fact. They outperform. So therefore, there's a growing number of male investors who see the benefits of expanding their investment horizons. So we need to have those men go out and sit on panels, share their success stories, not only with other men, but potential female investors, and help with the recruiting, frankly. And so we, at an institutional level, and Huda, hats off to her fabulous fund that there's 40% women at the table making the decision. We always keep saying we need to have more female GPs, women on investment committees, even young women starting as analysts in funds. Because when we have them if we give them those opportunities, going forward, it's all about growing the pipeline and providing experience. Just like what we do to try to get more women on boards, we need to get women early in on funds so they feel confident and have that experience. And very importantly, like what we're all doing here today, we as investors have to continually be open to sharing our experiences and maintaining a visible presence so that other women begin to think of themselves as potentially being able to be investors when they have the funds.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I may add to that, Nadia, I think it's important, obviously, to look at these ratios and numbers, and I think inclusion, especially at the analyst level, and bringing more women into the pipeline is very important. The other element of that is what these women need to find it interesting to come into the sector and become part of it. I think role models is one. A sense of, we have a lot of conferences and discussion around the challenges, etc. But I think what's also useful is to have conferences that are about the subject matter and not about women as such. There's some good conferences around that. There's a Women in Private Equity Summit. I think Lucy is aware of it, that in the US, that I think those conferences, they just focus on private equity, on investments, on industry sectors. The attendance is focused on women, but nothing else. And I think that's actually a very positive way of engaging with women. And in addition to doing that, I think then you have to come to the groups where there are women well represented, and ensure that they are given the voice share and the power share. Because you do have a tendency for people to say, oh, okay, everybody wants me to have a woman on the board, or a woman in one of the partners, or woman, and they'll hire them, but they then have to listen to them. And I'm sure most of you have heard about this. You need that magic number of at least 3 women at the table before there's equalization of voice and you actually don't get unheard, let's say. I don't know if that's the right number or not, but certainly having a woman in the room is a good but not sufficient step. I think there has to be more done in terms of power share, voice share, decisions share in particular. And decision making is very important because you can't, you need to get away from tick the box approach.
I agree. And you spoke about something, Lucy mentioned it, and you've just mentioned it as well, Huda, is Lucy, you mentioned about recruitment, right? And Huda, you've just mentioned about attracting the more women to the space. What steps regionally, just going into more of a regional conversation, you mentioned a forum in the US. What steps regionally do you think companies or government, or however you want to put the answer, can take in the UAE to attract more women into the space? I mean, talking about it is one thing, but actually attracting women to angel invest or just get interested in the topics. How do you think, or what do you think the UAE can do to go about that?
Huda, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lucy.
So I want to frame the MENA opportunity, if I can. So, 1 in 3 startups in MENA is founded or led by a woman, which is much higher a percentage than in Silicon Valley. Women in Arab countries make up 34 to 57% of STEM graduates. Again, this is much higher than universities across Europe and the US. And so, we always say in MENA, we're akin to like, emerging markets 30 years ago, except the development curve is likely to be more rapid due to digitization, as Huda mentioned. So what do we tangibly need? We need more businesses run by women, more businesses focused on women's needs, and then more investors that are women. So let's specifically discuss women as consumers. Ashish already talked about this, right? Women control 1/3 of the purchasing power around the world. So many VCs recognize the power of women's purchasing power, and they're opting to invest in products and services driven by female usage. So women may not necessarily be the ultimate consumers, but they're certainly very front and center in decision making. So we should deliberately invest in high potential products and services founded by females, even if a similar startup already exists and that it was founded by a man. In other words, what if we had another Uber or a Cream that's led by a woman? Like how would that look? How would that look differently? And I think it would resonate.
Exactly.
Right. I think it would resonate with investors and more female investors, because they're the ones making the decision, and they intuitively understand why there's a need for XYZ product. And one very important thing is that we should actually start low-hanging fruit. We should be tapping entrepreneurs. So it's no surprise that entrepreneurs are actually really good angels. And there is a trend that successful entrepreneurs really do like to give back and become angels. And if I was a new entrepreneur, I would value having the sage advice of an existing entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think, Nadia, there's a lot of terminology that puts people off. I think this is true for angel investing. It's true for entrepreneurship. It's true for a lot of things where young women, young people in general, think that something is not available or accessible to them. So going back to your question of what the UAE can do, I think a lot of it is awareness, making things easy, accessible, having a platform, an app where you can register and have access, and it's explained. Not everybody has seen a pitch deck and is used to seeing pitch decks, but people are used to seeing ideas and links to the app that they would be investing in, or the website, or the technology they're investing in. I think there are ways to make it more accessible so that people don't get intimidated. I remember some years ago, I was speaking at a panel, I think it was Dubai Women's Establishment, and people were talking about forming a board. And a lot of the young ladies were sort of intimidated by the concept of a board. I was like, a board is not some, inanimate, scary entity. It's a bunch of people that you know and respect and think that can add value to you, and they're there to help. So, just don't get intimidated by that. And I think that holds true for angel investing. It holds true for, becoming a tech entrepreneur. People get overwhelmed, and I think making things accessible and easily understandable would be a great way to break that barrier.
If I could quickly jump in and just say one thing, Huda, that's so true. And there's an awesome law firm, and you would know them, Clara.co, for instance. They put out a term sheet that it's free and anyone can access it. And they're based here in the UAE. And so there are awesome people like that, just trying to demystify the whole fundraising thing.
So the last word, what Lucy just said, was my focus, the fund. So, women's in general, they do perfect job if you compare to men. Jobs are much perfect and much better quality. And at the end of the day, perfect job needs time. And it needs time and patience, which generally men lack in. So they can go with a half project ready by saying it is a full project which is already ready. And 80% of a women, what you said yesterday, I remember 80% of the job is actually 100% of a man. So I think there should be a fund.
Versus perfection.
Yeah. So because they're too perfect, they're very perfect, and they don't like to take jump in before they know that they are already 90% sure. So sometimes you can lose the train. To catch the train, you have to be a little fast. So I think so that many men or other people don't cross their path, it is better to have a fund which is specifically for women entrepreneurs, angel investment, seeding from the ideas of women, so that if they take time to come and there are different proposals, that fund waits for them to be invested. I think that is going to, and the take away the risk factor, which they don't want to take, because there is a kind of insecurity that this might not work, this might not, it might lose money, they might not take those steps. I think that's a very core problem, that even if it's a great idea, but if they see 5% something not working, they'll just say no. So I think some fund which can just be there and say, like, don't worry, this risk we are going to take, you don't worry, you just get the work done perfectly the way you do. So as I was mentioning to you, I want to allocate fund specifically for women entrepreneurs and seed investment. I think I'll allocate $5 million for this, and we'll keep it aside just for investing right from scratch, like let's say 10,000-20,000 up to million, 2 million, 1 million, 2 million, whatever, depends on the idea, and all due diligence, what Lucy said. And I think this is going to bring them up. We'll let them come up and perform more better. This is going to have a direct impact on the entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that, Ashish. I think that's also a very important point, because what we find in a lot, or just me speaking to female entrepreneurs, it's been the nature of my job, is besides the women do business differently, as you've just mentioned, the ticket sizes that go to women are so much smaller. I mean, the checks written to women for some reason are so much smaller than that to their male counterparts. So, acknowledging that women do business differently, acknowledging the power of enhancing that rather than working against it is so important. And so thank you for bringing that up as well. I wanted to also just maybe go, are there any questions or anything that the panel would like to discuss? I have a final question for everybody, really, before we end off, but it's more to highlight, if you had to have, as an investor, investing and talking to a female-led startup or a startup with female founders, what words of encouragement would you give them? Or vice versa, if you are an investor and you have women interested in learning more about angel investing, what would you say to them? How would they start? Where did they go? So if you take it from the female founder perspective versus the female investor, new investor perspective, if somebody could jump in on that one.
Okay, I'll go a bit backwards and talk to the potential female investor first. And that would be obviously reach out to those of us that are investing, because we would know, and the WBAF Angel Investment Fund, for instance, we are always looking for new investors. So I think it's useful to talk and you say, okay, I'm ready, and let's start talking to funds that you might want to be a part of. Don't wait for someone to invite you. Make sure you go out there and say, I'm ready. What can I do to start becoming an angel? And then in terms of for female founders, it isn't easy fundraising, and this is going to be very controversial, because our whole discussion is about talking about that raise. But it's really interesting in that I guess because we talk about and we live in environments that are all about the entrepreneurial ecosystem and fundraising, we have to remember that, if you don't ever have to fundraise, don't. If you can keep your 100% equity, there is no shame in that. Unfortunately, what's happened is our barometer of success now has been measured by how much equity we're able to give away. And that's not the right path for everyone. So again, I think this is, this is me saying this as an investor. And so it might be counterintuitive but you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. You don't ever have to give away equity.
Yeah. Great. I think we have hit our time limit on this panel, unfortunately. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of the change and being a part of a world you want to see. Joining me, talking to me. It's been so good getting to know you all. And enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll meet again soon, hopefully in person and not just virtually.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.